The potential of Nvidia is incredible. You may get quite wealthy with this type of stock. Nvidia, the notion that the rise could put has some validity because the market is overbought plus 5 on the S&P short-range indicator that I track. It doesn't help that expectations have gone out of control and Nvidia ran up quickly into the quarter. It was distressing to witness the stock have such a terrible reversal today. Therefore, what's being taken on the chin here may have just been embraced in a market that was more giving. To demonstrate how difficult this market has become, especially in comparison to a week ago, I would like to share a few examples with you. However, as you note, there was an 18% gain last week, correct? That's what Goldman said in a note on Friday. Do we get that normal post-Labor Day gross up, right? Yes, well, look, if we completed some of the work in August. He said, look, it's August, and it's as busy as I can recall. In reference to one of the things I was dealing with. Someone who is essential to attempting to fill in for David. In the M&A process. I had a pleasant conversation with Lisa Su as well, you know. Before we discuss that acquisition, I would like to bring up the topic of my wake-up time, which we discussed this past weekend. My wife believes that I wake up at 4:30, which is ridiculous. Do you mean me? At 3:45, I get up. I must have the upper hand on all the villains. However, it was evident that Nvidia had lost $1.70. As a result, at 6 in the morning, Lisa Su announced her relatively competitive acquisition of ZT. The stock of Nvidia then rises, but we'll get into it later. Nvidia is therefore a real oddball. Last week was a big week, and I'm hoping that since I've owned it for my CH forever, you want to come in cold and I don't want to come in hot. However, this is a unique situation, and some individuals who perform this task simply claim that it is really inexpensive. You know, when we look back, we'll think it was really inexpensive. I suppose it would begin with Alphabet's trading multiple alone. Returning to the rotation and the new outlook on many of these companies, Microsoft will undoubtedly discuss its spending and the amount of money that will be discussed regarding AI. We've never seen anything like the CAPEX numbers, so as usual, I sit here and just marvel at the numbers themselves, whether they are operating income, free cash flow, or the amount of money these firms are spending. Will that then take precedence above anything else? We'll return to this fundamental question. Will all of this ever yield a return on your investment? All right, so Jensen W. and Mark Zuckerberg have a fireside chat today. Oh, at a graphics conference, okay, in Denver, and I believe this might be the first time. Of course, Zuckerberg is in quiet P because he works for Meta, but you might see him start a conversation with Jensen there regarding something constructive. Recall that when this whole incident began, Jensen and Mark did not. My friends, Jensen and Mark obviously did not get along. Mark, who I believe is a huge ROI man, then saw the benefit. Other than that one branch where he's still figuring things out, no one knows him. Even though I believe he wears Ray-Bans, it doesn't make a difference. I believe he can make a strong argument to Jensen there about why he wants to spend money with Jen Wang, even though the stock is up for whatever reason. According to Jensen Wang, Nvidia never really bounced back from the pay protection or else policy of previous President Trump. Even more startling is the fact that I have sources in the PRC. Well, that's difficult for me to imagine. Actually, the people there are Americans. They're from America. Do you really want me to interrogate you about this? It's going to blow up in your face. Well, no, because it's not, in fact. Identify these PRC sources for me. No, just listen. Do they visit you at night? Let me speak directly to your brain, President Tessie. Let's start with G. Randu, who was on M-Money the previous week. Don't worry, the Democrats would protect Taiwan, is what she's saying, correct? Listen, we have to, pay us tribute, pay us protection money. Is what former President Trump is saying. One of my followers who lives in America and conducts a lot of business with China also made the very reasonable statement, look, they're not. They would. They're starting to think maybe we'd prefer, the status quo. However, the government doesn't care, so if we could get in there and take Taiwan, that would be an opportunity, then. As one could guess, it would be a very disastrous time for the global economy. Yes, that would be terrible, And I'm pleased you brought that up because you're referring to a company that is among the biggest, and all of its semis originate from the nation. We are referring to Taiwan Semi, which produces all of the high-end chips. We are currently in the process of trying to change that. The CHIPS Act included that. This is somewhat being changed by factories being constructed in states like Arizona, for instance, some of which are constructed by the same corporation. They won't be the most advanced, though. Although they are supposed to be state-of-the-art, the chips that Nvidia requires are actually rather different from any other. They aren't chips that are used in cars, though. I want to return to your original thesis, though. It was interesting to note that Nvidia's stock price sort of stopped rising and actually began to decline a little bit on those. What then reverses that? We're back to what we're going to receive this week after all. There is no chance that anyone will argue that we will cut back on spending since, as people are discussing, the total amount spent over time by all of the hyperscalers and everyone else is $1.4 trillion. It goes without saying that you must have a vice president. Vice President Vance, the nominee, stated that the connection with Taiwan is sacred no matter what. Now, that was previous President Trump's rap for all of this, which is why I feel it's conceivable. He chose the sacrosanct because he was. Has current Vice President Harris given us any updates on that? According to what you indicated, Vice President Harris is in agreement with the current strategy, as stated by the Commerce Secretary. What can we anticipate from Nvidia's earnings later this month? Have we tempered expectations? Going into them, is the bar a little bit lower? In terms of August 28th, I believe it will be a drop-the-mic, possibly the most significant results we've seen from any firm in the previous 4 or 5 years. Because the strongest indicator of what we observe in terms of spending is Jensen's speech, the godfather of AI. However, we recently returned from Asia, and demand is still rising. And that, in my opinion, is crucial as the year draws to a close. We believe that technology is booming, which is why we believe that the Nasdaq 20,000 will remain there as we enter early 2025. Are you referring to China or somewhere else when you say that demand is higher in Asia? I'm referring to a more comprehensive view of the supply chain and how it manifests itself from a chip standpoint. We simply concentrate on what demand looks like, which brings us full circle to the growth worry. Additionally, Nvidia is demonstrating acceleration from an AI standpoint, as demonstrated by Microsoft, the larger cloud providers, the Messi of AI Paler, and all the breadcrumbs now, ServiceNow. And even if many of the bears have emerged from hibernation mode over the last, say, week and a half or 2 weeks, I believe that the street is still discounting it in relation to the figures, which is why I still believe it's time to pound to buy our winners in tech. We just went over a lot of material, but the hyperscalers haven't been discussed yet. Are those currently a good investment, or are they any of the other AI-benefiting fields we just discussed? The key to the next layer of AI, in my opinion, is Amazon. When you look at the DI, you look at Microsoft in particular and what Nadella has done. You also look at Google, which is currently profiting greatly. For this reason, I believe that Microsoft should be the first thing you see when you glance at that basket. We think that in a year,